If you're trying to make sense of what's happening in the Belleville real estate market, then you come to the right place. You've probably been hearing a lot about the doom and gloom in the real estate market, but that's not quite what these local stats are saying. I put together a 2026 April Belleville real estate snapshot. You can get that down below in the description. What I've done is I've taken all the stats from Quinte West and Belleville, over 200 sales, and put that into one package in easy to read graphs, which I'm going to go through in this video. But now you can see that we're not cherry picking. We're just taking the data as it is, and we're trying to get a clear picture of what it is that's happening. I've broken it down into 4 simple metrics, and there's one in particular that I find most people read incorrectly. But let's get to it. So let's start with the sales numbers. This tells us how active the market is right now. Specifically, number of sales. If we look at April of 2026, we can see here quite the spike. We had 140 sales this past month. Now, if you look at the previous month of March, you were at 87 sales. That's quite a spike. That's actually a 60% jump in total number of sales between March and April. That's pretty drastic. Now, if you look at the year over year, April of last year, we were around 145 sales. So we're down ever so slightly from last year. And in my opinion, when I look at this, I think this is great because it's a little bit more predictable. This is essentially a spring market. The weather has changed outside. As everyone knows, we had a terrible winter. It's been a kind of a cool spring, so I think things have been delayed a little bit. But now the warmer weather is here and people are out, and it's very clear that they're buying and they are selling. Now, why is this important? It's predictability. This is what a seasonal market should look like in real estate. And so for those that have been waiting for the perfect time to purchase and they're waiting for everything to line up just so, well, as we've seen, that never really comes. But if you can get a predictable market, that makes it much easier to figure out when you're going to make that move. Now, sales volume tells us about activity, but it doesn't tell us about volume. That's where you have the average sale price. Now, a lot of people get really confused with this one. Honestly, when I look at the average sale price, I often see the headlines where they talk about how the numbers have been shifting drastically, especially in the bigger cities like the GTA, where they say, hey, sales prices have dropped X number of dollars. It's drastic year over year. But when we look here, April of 26, we have an average of $562,000 for the sale price locally. The previous month, not that different, around $538,000. Now that is a $24,000 jump. And if you're reading a headline, you'll often see $24,000 average jump on the sale price in an area, and that's a great headline. But the thing is, when I look at the median sale price, I think that's where it tells a true story. Because last month, the median sale price, $520,000. This month, $525,000. $5,000 difference. Which one do you think you're gonna see in the headline? $5,000 or $25,000 jump? They're gonna go for the one that's gonna grab your attention. But in my opinion, when you're looking at our local market and you want an idea of what the average is, using that word average, you really wanna look at the median. That's gonna tell you where things are and where things are moving. And that's where I see a little bit more consistency. And you might wonder why this is the case here. Well, Belleville and Quinte West is a smaller market. Once again, it doesn't react the way that you see in the larger cities. There's a much less data that we're pulling from in terms of overall sales, as we're gonna see. So when we have a few sales up top where it's really expensive homes that end up selling, those really expensive homes can skew the data on the average. But the median, it gets rid of those and it just sticks with what's in the middle. So if you're looking to be an educated buyer and make a move and wondering what's actually happening, I would often say, yes, look at the average price. It gives you an idea, but definitely reference the median price as well. But pricing's only half the story. The other half, supply and demand. And that's where we have months of inventory. This is a stat you'll often hear referenced when people ask, well, are we in a balanced market? Or are we in a buyer's market, a seller's market? They're really talking about this number right here. And months of inventory this past month, 4.2 months of inventory. And that's down from the March high of 5.7 months of inventory. What does this mean practically? Well, anything over 5 months of inventory is often seen as a buyer's market. Whereas as soon as you're between that 3 and 5 months, you're now into a balanced territory. And we've most definitely dipped into that balance range. Now, if we compare to a year ago, April of 2025, we were under 3.5 months of inventory. That means things were moving and the market was maybe a little bit quicker, whereas right now it slowed down that little bit. but I wouldn't say this is a bad thing. Honestly, this goes right along with that idea of a spring market being predictable and a little bit more steady. This is a situation where it gives buyers time to make their decision. It allows them to do their due diligence on the home, compare other properties, look at the pricing, and make a solid decision. And in that scenario, I find it actually helps the sellers because you're now dealing with a buyer that's been informed. And when they make that offer, it's that much more solid that they have all the information behind them and they're not rushing into it, which often creates problems at the end. Now, I will add that I've been helping people in this area buy and sell homes quite a bit. As a top producer of my brokerage last year, I was able to see a lot of people move from out of the area and what that looked like with the months of inventory down in the 3 range. And I will say the 4.2 months of inventory this year doesn't feel quite the same as what it felt like in previous years of real estate. And so right now, when somebody asks me, well, what's going on? What are you feeling right now? I will say very clearly, it is a balanced market. But I will more so say it's a healthy market. Both the sellers and the buyers have their expectations in check, and this number I think very much represents that. And that leads to the final piece, days on market. Really, this stat tells us about the urgency. How quickly are things happening in this market? And if we look right now in April, it came in 43 days on market. That's how long it takes for the average home to get listed and to be officially sold. The previous month, 51 days on the market. Now, if we look at this once again, we're going to see back in April of 2025, we were down just over 25 days on the market. To me, once again, that is not a healthy situation. It most definitely is not a balanced situation. Right now, this is following what we've just seen from the months of inventory, and that things are a little bit more predictable. 43 days, in my opinion, is quite healthy because it gives everybody time. It gives time for the buyer to do their due diligence. And if you're the type of buyer, and many of which I deal with from outside of the area that are moving here want to be educated, well, this gives you time to ask the questions, see what's available, and make that educated decision. And so this is a good thing. To my opinion, this is all a sign pointing to, once again, a spring market that's doing well, but it's not taking off in any one particular favor. It's not that the sellers are in complete control, but it's not that the buyers are in complete control and then they can just take on anything. It's really a market that is showing balance and that both parties are working together and coming to purchase homes, and we're getting solid deals from start to end. So what does this actually mean for your situation? Well, in my opinion, this is what's going to separate those that are educated, ready to make a decision, from those that are just continuously waiting for everything to align perfectly. I think we're in the type of market where you have the data you need to make the right decision. And I would also say it's showing that we're not really in the doom and gloom market that you're hearing a lot about all over the headlines, whether it be the sensational YouTube videos, Instagram, or just any news articles. I think we're seeing a fairly balanced market overall. Now, if you want to look at these stats, once again, I mentioned I did the market snapshot below for April. You can check the link down below. And one other thing that I've been noting, and I'm going to be looking into and touching on a little bit more, is the recent news about the HST that the federal and Ontario government talked about for the new home builds. To me, that's a pretty big piece of the puzzle that might skew the market in one direction. But all the news I'm hearing is talking about the bigger cities. Once again, they seem to dominate the headlines. But I don't think many people are talking about how it's going to affect these smaller markets. And a few interesting little details I've been to learn as I talk to all the local builders here. So I'm going to look into that next, and we're going to see what is it that's going to happen and potentially affect our market as we work through 2026. Till next time.